What's up, everybody? Oh, I can't talk.
What?
What's up, everybody? It's A-Love, or Nana the Badass, whatever you want to know me as. And today I'm going to be doing a video about the MOVE bombing of Philadelphia in 1985. If you don't know what that is, well, you're here, so I'm about to tell you. It's not a happy story, so don't think me smiling has anything to do with where it goes. Obviously, it's not good we're talking about bombs. But yeah, I'm going to give you a rundown of the group itself, the leader, and all that good jazz, and get you guys educated and up to date, because I feel like not a lot of people know about this instance in our history, so it's time for you too. So first we're going to talk to you about the leader of the MOVE group. His name was Vincent Leaphart, mainly known as John Africa. He was born on July 26, 1938, to the parents Frederick Leaphart and Lenny Mae, or Lenny Mae. Might be pronouncing that wrong. Lenny Mae, John's mother, passed away in her 40s, and John believed the hospital to be the cause of her death. At the age of 9, John was transferred to a school for slow learners to, try to get him educated in trade in hopes that he could, start a career for himself, and, learn some things. Though John was put in a different school, he still tended to struggle with his studies, which resulted in him dropping out of school at the age of 16. Now, not long after John dropped out of school, he was drafted into the Korean War, where he served in the infantry unit. John served for a little over a year, and during these times he started to develop a hatred for the American class system and its ties to race. Upon John's return from the war, he attempted an interior design career in New York, but ended up returning back to Powelton Village, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, to continue his occasional work as a handyman. Also, not long after his return home from the war, he met his soon-to-be wife, Dorothy Clark, and they got married not long after they met, and John was the age 29 at the time. It's said that Dorothy described their marriage as ordinary, and friends of John's would describe him as level-headed and dependable, which, sounds like a good guy, and an ordinary marriage, I guess that's all a girl can hope for. John's friends even went to also say that Dorothy would help John with his reading and writing, because if you remember, like I said, John, was in a school for slow learners and he dropped out early. In 1971, John moved his family into Powelton, and in 1972, he changed his name as to what we know him as now, John Africa. In this town in West Philadelphia,
Born and raised on the
to be catching John's vibe, they kind of liked his teachings. And while John was in this West Philadelphia town, he happened to eventually come across this social worker that worked at the University of Philadelphia named Donald Glassey. And Donald was very intrigued in John's ideologies and thoughts. He thought he was a very interesting man, and he thought his ideologies were interesting, and they aligned with his views as well. So he offered to write John a book, or, write down John's theories and ideologies for him. And John was like, you know what, I can't really write really well, so go ahead, buddy, sure, that sounds good. The document Glassey concocted was titled The Guidelines, and though Glassey and Africa split ways eventually because of differing ideologies, Africa still used that book as I don't want to say Bible, but that's what he used to spread his teachings. In 1972 is when John created the first, the first rendition of MOVE, called the Christian Movement for Life. The guidelines around his teaching were based in strict veganism, the inherent value of all living things. He was against police brutality, animal cruelty. Sounds like pretty basic, I could get down with that type thing. That John was charismatic, so it didn't take him long to recruit more and more followers, or disciples, if you'd like to call them that. It said the followers weren't just one particular race, so it wasn't just, black people hearing what he was saying. It was of all races and all ages, of just being yeah, I can get with this. They were relating to the history of hardships that he was teaching about, and disciples. With John having a plethora of followers and disciples now, they decided to make the group as what we now know called MOVE. And it's not an abbreviation, it's just that, MOVE, in all caps. 1974, the MOVE members got their hands on a 3.5-story Victorian twin house at 309 North 33rd Street, and not long after that they got their hands on another twin house at 307 North 33rd Street. The second house, you know, it served as headquarters and like a living area for the members of the group and their children. To note that all of the members of MOVE adopted the same surname as John Africa, so you know they all had the last name Africa. They also all took the age of 1 to symbolize rebirth, and they all had dreadlocks. To generate income, because you know you still got to pay bills. They would organize a car wash. Some members would shovel pavement and sidewalks, and others would help out elderly members. You know, for a little bit of extra cash here and there. During these years, the groups would go across the city and perform these non-violent acts they called staged profanity, pretty much protesting certain events that they didn't, you know, agree with, such as like the Philadelphia Zoo, certain political events, speaker forums, pet stores, things of that nature. Official police reports, MOVE demonstrated at least 38 demonstrations in 1975, and the members were arrested 142 times along with 62 court appearances. So, you know, even though they were non-violent, they were still disrupting the peace, so they were getting arrested and charged. The documentary Let It Burn, a documentary about the conflict with the Liberation Group and the city of Philadelphia. A former member of the Philly Police Department came forward and said that there was over 193 arrests of MOVE members between the years 1972 and 1978. So that's like almost 200 arrests during the span of 6 years. And that's a lot. They clearly wanted them arrested. I think that's safe to say. It's said because of the disruptive lifestyle of the MOVE members, it began to lead to conflict, and like not just with law enforcement, but with neighbors too. There was lots of complaints coming in from the law or to the law enforcement about the MOVE members and the situation of their house. Apparently, when the MOVE members would dispose of their trash, they would dispose it out in the backyard for compost, but this was causing pests like rats and roaches to come, and because of their beliefs on all life, they weren't getting rid of the pests. Another thing was they were rescuing a lot of stray dogs, apparently, and, you know, that's a good thing, but apparently they had a lot of them, and it was causing problems for the neighbors around. And it's not like every single neighbor was against them. There were neighbors that, you know, found what they were doing to be good, and they aligned with their ideologies. But others were just, you know, having a bit, being over it. Also seen that they also had like a megaphone that would like blast the messages of like what they were teaching at all hours of the day. And I'm not gonna lie, if I was a neighbor, I'd be a little irritated about that too. 1973 and 1976, the law enforcement had to begin to like get the suspicion that the MOVE group was harboring weapons, and tensions started, you know, rising because of this. An incident took place in 1978 when police tried to take siege of the MOVE house and pretty much be like, hey, you guys gotta go. And MOVE was like, we're not going anywhere. And that kind of resulted in a shootout, which led to 9 MOVE members being arrested and 1 police officer being fatally shot. And that with this happening and the already sneaking suspicion that the organization was like harboring weapons, that made tensions rise even more, and that made the government label the organization as a terrorist organization, and he said he was determined to remove it from Powelton Village. That leads us to the day we are discussing, May 13th, 1985, Mother's Day. 38 years ago was the day of the bombing. There was nearly 500 police officers on the scene, along with city manager Leo Brooks, which I didn't know cities had managers. They arrived in force and attempted to clear the building out and, you know, give the MOVE members their warrants that they had gotten issued. And they cut off the water and the electricity to the building in hopes of getting the MOVE members out, but that did not work. So, at approximately 5:35 a.m., Sambor, which I'm assuming is like the police chief at the time, read a long speech addressed to the members that started with, "Attention, MOVE. This is America. You are to abide by the laws of the United States." After he gave that speech, the group was given 15 minutes to come out, which they didn't. I also think it's important to mention that the neighbors of this house, the MOVE house, were warned to evacuate, so they knew that something was going down, but I don't think any of the civilians or any of the members of the MOVE group knew the severity of what really was going to be going down. So with the speech not working, the water and electricity being off not working, the police decide that they are going to enter the house by force, which then ensues a 90-minute, I'm sure, very long, very grueling shootout, where tear gas was thrown into the building. Over 10,000 rounds of ammunition was used, which that's a lot of ammunition. And like I said, the shootout was 90 minutes long, so that's more than an hour of just shooting. That's crazy. Only one police officer got hit and injured, but it was not fatal during the shootout. It hit him in the back in his flak jacket, and so he survived. At 2 p.m., Sambor, remember the police chief I mentioned, orders the compound to be bombed. And it's not like, I don't know why I thought that bombs couldn't be administered like this, but the bomb was literally dropped out of a helicopter. I didn't know that that was a thing. I don't know why I didn't know, but I just didn't know. The more you know. Helicopters can be bomb carriers. You can drop a bomb out of a helicopter. The more you know. The Philadelphia Police Department proceeded to drop 2 1.5-pound bombs on the house. The bombs were made out of Tovark. I think it's Tovak. Let me check my notes. Tovex. The bombs were made out of Topex, which is like a substitute for dynamite, and also FBI supplied C4. Now, I don't know what the difference between FBI supplied C4 and regular C4 is, but I'm guessing that it just makes bigger booms. The bombs ignited 45 seconds after they were deployed, and they caught fire to the gas coming out of a generator, which caught the house on fire. The fire department was told not to put the fire out so they could destroy the bunker of the MOVE group, which is absolutely crazy because, like I said, it's around other houses. Like, people's whole lives are right there, like their houses, and you're just going to let it burn. They let it burn for 30 minutes before getting the fire department to put it out. And the fire department didn't get it put out until 11:42 p.m., I believe. And by then, 65 houses had burned down. So yeah, they let the fire burn for 30 minutes before even going to try to put it out. And by then, it had already spread to other houses. So 65 houses had burned down, which meant 250 people were now homeless. The only two remaining MOVE members were Birdie Africa and Ramona Africa. Birdie was 13 years old at the time. Ramona said that the police officers were shooting at people trying to escape the house. The police officers said that they were shooting at who was shooting at them. The fire from the bomb killed 11 people in the MOVE house, 5 of them being children. Ramona, the only surviving MOVE member, was charged with conspiracy to riot and rioting and was sentenced to 7 years and 16 months in jail, which she served, and she is out now, which I think is good because, I mean, that's a lot of shit to go through and still be in jail, which there are still MOVE members in jail. Obviously, like how most of these stories go, no public officials were charged with the deaths of any of the MOVE members or like any of the trauma that they've caused on that block. But in 1996, a federal jury orders the city to pay $1.5 million in civil suit judgment to survivor Ramona and to the relative of 2 other MOVE members who were killed in the bombing. The jury had found that the city had used excessive force, which, yeah, I'd say so. You burned down 65 buildings, and violated the members' constitutional protections against unreasonable search and seizure. Ramona was rewarded $50,000 for the pain and suffering and the physical, damage that she suffered during this terrible, terrible incident. The hurt and impact of this incident is still around to this day. Not just to mention the incident itself, but remains of MOVE members were given to universities for, like, classes, but they were never told that these remains were moved to these universities. And when they finally found out, they're not even sure if they got all of the remains back or not, because it's been so long. The university seemed to be lying, and it's really messed up. It's very extremely messed up. All in all, it's a really sad situation. I think the bombing definitely could have been avoided. I think it shows good insight to America's tactics and how far they are willing to go against its own citizens. Prayers and just thoughts go out to all the family members that were affected during this, because it's just such a crazy, crazy incident in our history, and I think it needs to be talked about more. I forgot to add highlight, but I was just doing something simple just for the sake of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will definitely be making more videos like this soon. They may be a little bit more lighthearted than this one. They may not be. But if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. Let me know what you would like for me to cover in the next video. And yeah, peace out.